So welcome everybody. This is the first live episode and episode number 16. As we talked about, we are entering a different phase of the market. I think it's pretty obvious given the extent of some of the moves that we are now for the first time potentially escaping the bear. I don't know if you guys agree, or I don't know, maybe some people think this is going to just revert. What's your guys' take on are we back?
Yeah, so this well, first the ETH ETF news is very interesting, right? That BlackRock filed for an ETH ETF as well. I think that's, hugely exciting, and I think ETH was certainly bleeding to BTC because of the ETF news, and I think this is a tailwind for ETH. I do think the market is sort of heating up quite a bit, and I'm sort of wondering if that means that this ETF has been priced in for BTC, and if this could be sell the news because I've talked about this before, but it seems like everything in crypto has been sell the news, at least since I've been in it. Nothing lives up to expectations. So yeah, I'm curious what you guys think about this. Is this going to be sell the news or not?
Yeah, it's the price action is definitely interesting. The one thing I noticed is that here, let me share this screen here. But recently, we've seen the stablecoin market cap just start to increase, which I think is very interesting. We were bleeding throughout the beginning of the year, and then we entered this basing process in the month of August and September, and now it's starting to tick up. And then also, this is, I mean, I'm not sure how important this is, but if you look at my YouTube subscriber count, I've started to gain some subscribers.
Wow, that's the sign. That's the sign.
I know. Like, what is going on here? Like literally every time I upload a video, I lose subs, and then recently you can kind of see this uptrend, right? Like the slight uptrend in my subscriber count, and maybe the retail interest is picking up, which should be good for the average altcoin, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting that we're seeing a ton of announcements right now. This is the time that everyone's deciding to tell us what random thing they've been doing and get a price pump for it, because we're back in those days. Like the funding rates, I haven't seen these funding rates in years, literally years. We are at very positive funding rates, which means that the degens that want to long are going to have to pay, in some cases, 10 plus bips per window, 30 bips a day. A little bit worrying seeing those funding rates. It does scare me a little bit. It means that people are aggressively leveraging. We've seen that work really well at the beginning of 21. We've seen that work really badly a few times. So the concern, I guess, is just that the amount of market cap increase that we're going after, there's not quite enough like stable coins and like money to back it up. But some things are definitely different. You're right. Like there's more subscribers, there's more viewers on our content. The conferences are like bullish now. Like it's not bearish to have a conference, and there's none of that right now, which is shocking. Yeah, it does feel like things are changing.
Yeah, I feel compelled to dunk on Thicky a little bit. I think he sort of deserves it here. So Jordy, to your point regarding funding, he's basically begging for people to short perp so that Thicky's APYs will come down for what he's paying for funding rates. And I also would like to point out that Thicky was short ETH BTC right before the news came out. And so for the ETH maxis on the call here, for all the listeners, this was our little moment of justice here where we finally got back at Thicky.
Yeah, I imagine he's probably been in front of his screen and getting like those alarm system calls nonstop on his phone. It is an environment where I think traders can do quite well if they're catching like narrative shifts and stuff like that. The dangerous time to be short. I think we will get multiple pullbacks. We had one huge one yesterday, one of the largest. We had a lot of altcoins just dropped 25% in a single kind of candle. It was interesting to see the reaction. Some of them held up really well after, like Arbitrum, I think just kind of recovered pretty quickly, and now that's shooting up again. Some of them didn't really recover, and maybe it was a bit of air underneath. So those are the moments that, as a trader, I'm kind of looking at to see how strong the support is for a specific coin.
Well,
Yeah.
so you and Thicky actually couldn't record yesterday. That's why we're doing it live today, because, well, for you, Jordy, you were just busy moving from exchange to exchange, and Thicky was busy trading. Can you walk us through what happened yesterday? What was that like? What were you actually doing?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's very different from a HFT organization market maker standpoint versus for an individual kind of discretionary trader. For us, there's a lot of operational stuff that happens when these kind of moves happen. First of all, some accounts might get liquidated because they're there's like a 200% move, and you're running on like a 5x leverage, so you have to top those up. Other accounts do really well. You have to move the capital. And then what we saw yesterday was huge arbitrage opportunities between different exchanges. Some of the DeFi, like even Arbitrum and some of forget things like Clayton and stuff. There were not enough like coins on chain to buy like the DEX pairs. So for 20 minutes at a time, there would be like 10, 20% arbitrages on some DEXs, because there literally was no money on that chain enough to commensurate with like the move needed to move stuff up. So it was a very busy day. I think it was probably a very good day for most kind of professional market makers or like HFT players. And when it comes to discretion, I think some people must have had incredible days, and some people got blown out. If you were bearish, I can't imagine how you survive this kind of move. And I'm sure that some of the comments are going to be the initial comments were asking about Solana.
Yeah,
So,
the Solana chart is absolutely insane. I mean, it's. I mean, if you can share the chart here, I mean, it's up only, literally, and it's really impressive how.
I think you're on the wrong tab there, Tyke.
Oh, my bad. Okay,
yeah, we're looking at your if your viewership count was like the Solana price chart.
Oh my
Are you
God,
just
that would be
permanently
euphoric.
refreshing that, Tyke?
No, I feel like that's like a good indicator of like DeFi interest, because I kind of focus on DeFi content, and maybe it's like a personal issue where like my video quality isn't good enough, but I feel like I've been like pumping out content, but like generally looking into the Solana price action, it's really impressive, right? And I think this podcast has been neutral to bearish Solana, so I think we do have to address this. Also, it's crazy how literally. Galaxy Digital, or Galaxy, right? Novogratz just sends just millions of dollars of Solana to exchanges, presumably to sell, but the buy pressure just absorbs it. Do you think it's just a short squeeze, or like what do you think is happening here, Jordy?
I mean, first of all, there is a surprising amount of buying interest in all kinds of coins. ETH finally had its leg up after this ETF news. It was just horribly performing apart from yesterday. But there seems to be money on the buying side for everything. I think Solana kind of got that first, rotation into it as like a very obvious altcoin. We're having an altcoin season. I don't quite understand where that money's coming from, because it seems to be leverage, but then we get a leverage washout like we did yesterday, 25% down. And then we're just like back at the highs like 24 hours later. There must be some money kind of from the wealth effect potentially of Bitcoin and ETH, especially Bitcoin, that is being rotated into these alts. Now, do I think it's healthy? Like ethically, philosophically, everything else, I'm kind of divided. I think in the short run, it's good. There's activity, there's signs of life, there's interest in the space. People are gonna kind of come back. All the people that had you unsubscribe, Tyke might resubscribe. Like, we might get some of that. On the other side, like, how do I feel about? I mean, we can maybe bring up CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. I don't know if you guys can bring that, and the audience and us can look at some of the shit coins potentially that have been ripping up. Let's see what we have. Okay, I mean top 10. Okay, the usual suspect. Let's say your favorite Cardano, Justin is not quite up. I think. Okay, wow. Okay, so Kujira, yeah, maybe try that 7-day.
Sure.
Yeah, so Kujira, Illuvium, like these are what I would call a kind of niche, cultish kind of segments.
It's like momentum. Yeah. There's been a few Cosmos-based coins that's been going crazy. Kujira and Injective, like they've been like
Yes.
Injective's near all-time highs. And I was looking into Injective a couple months ago. I had someone look into it, and there's like no one using it, but the token just goes up only. And same goes for Kujira. I understand that they're trying to ship like their over collateralized stablecoin, their central limit order book, but like, are people just buying these because the chart looks good? Like, I don't understand like the fundamental case of, or maybe we're just in this early stages of the bull market where like fundamentals don't matter. It's more about narrative. If the price looks good, chart looks good, people ape. Maybe we are in that new paradigm, or maybe like a new paradigm, but we're in this sea change where narratives do begin to matter.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Go ahead.
It feels like we didn't even learn our lesson. Like like when we were coming out of 2019 and into 2020, none of this crazy stuff that's, well, not picking on a single coin is like, oh, worthless or just a mimetic coin pumped, right? Like these things all took time, and the seeds of this crazy bull market took a lot of time. But it really feels like we're like just jumping right into it right now. Like, I mean, there's really everything is just popping off, whether it's useless or not, which I don't think is a good thing, to your point early, Jordy. And yeah.
I think we're seeing a couple of things. Like one is cycle theory. Like, yes, after a very long period of consolidation, eventually, money comes in for whatever reason. A little bit surprised at the ETH underperformance, regardless of, the single day massive candles we had yesterday, which are, spectacular, and it's great. And I think that's the best thing for the ecosystem, because the coin that is most widely held by crypto natives is probably ETH. Macro is probably more holding Bitcoin. So that's fantastic. I think, so to answer your question, Taiki, the way I conceptualize it, it's not so much around the charts looking good or whatever, because not so many people, are chartists necessarily. I think about it this way. We talked in a previous episode about monetary premium and how, Bitcoin and ETH, maybe ETH have kind of potentially started to get along this path where most of their value is well, Bitcoin 100%, ETH probably 3/4 is less the cash flow and more this like monetary premium, community premium that we're calling it. The way to simplify this is there's a market for monetary premium, and it's $1 trillion. Right now, some of that is in smaller coins, and some of it is in Bitcoin and ETH, right? And the percentage that is in smaller coins, I think over the long run reduces, because people kind of realize that there isn't monetary premium necessarily in these things. But look at it from a VC bet. Like from a VC standpoint, you make 100 bets, you expect 99 of them to, scratch or go to zero, and then one of them to win. If we look at these top 100 coins as like 100 VC bets on monetary premium, and maybe one of them actually wins, not wins, but like ends up kind of being considered a store of value in 10 years. Maybe it looks less crazy that, these things have it now, because if it wins, then it's worth, a ton. And so like even a 1% chance of Solana becoming equivalent to Ethereum is worth X. How does that sound?
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. And another thing I wanted to bring up was, and this is kind of following up to what you were saying, or Jordy, earlier about the lack of liquidity. I think yesterday ETH was up 10% or some big number. And more than half of the altcoins that I had on my list was like down. So it seemed like Ether was just sucking up liquidity from altcoins because the market just agreed that, okay, Ether is the next narrative, whether it be because of the Ether ETF or a potential ETH BTC bottom. And it still seems like this rotation of capital. And Justin, if you can like pull up this chart, I also thought this was kind of interesting, where this is kind of ETH BTC overlaid with Total 3. So Total 3 is the total market cap that doesn't contain Bitcoin or ETH. So it's mostly altcoins. And whenever there's like a peak in the ETH BTC ratio, it kind of coincides with like these tops, right? And the only instance where this isn't the case was where like earlier in the cycle where like maybe ETH BTC starts out at a lower rate and then it kind of goes parabolic. What do you guys think about ETH BTC? Do you think that this is the bottom? And if it's not the bottom, then do you think this is kind of like from like a bearish standpoint, right? Is it like near the latter end, like stages of a potential local top where, Bitcoin rallies, shitcoins rally, Ether sucks up liquidity, and then we kind of go through like the entire distribution phase all over again?
I personally think the same thing we saw with Bitcoin is literally just repeating itself with Ether. So when the BTC ETF was filed by BlackRock, we saw a small pump, and then I think we somewhat retraced that and went down to like 24K, and the market sort of discounted it. And then we had this fake news leak from Cointelegraph or CoinDesk or one of the coin news outlets. And then since then, the price has basically been up only, and we're up, say, 30 to 45% ish, I think, from when the filing dropped. And it seems to me like we're seeing the same exact thing for ETH, right? So we saw that initial move up, but I would argue that it still seems pretty underpriced relative to Bitcoin. Should this ETF, actually go through, or should the market think it actually goes through? So I think everyone seems to be discounting it a little bit, but I actually think it's huge news, as big as the BlackRock BTC ETF filing. So I think that there will be a huge narrative shift once the BTC ETF goes live, or is approved, not necessarily goes live. All of that focus goes to ETH, right? Because, people in crypto do sort of know that these things are sell the news. Day one of this ETF trading is surely going to disappoint everyone, right? Like, it's not going to be billions of inflows on day one. It's probably not going to look that great on day one, like we saw with the ETH futures ETF, which obviously is different. But
yeah, do you think we're
that's
going to
sort of
get
my
like
expectation.
other ETFs? I mean, some people are already memeing Solana ETFs or Cardano ETF. Like, watch out, Justin.
I think I think like we'll see it first with the more obvious non-security tokens that for whatever reason people still buy. Like, I'm talking the junk of the junk, like Litecoin, right? Litecoin is one of those things that's just always listed on exchange. Like Robinhood, when they launched trading for tokens, I think Litecoin was like one of the 4 they launched with, right? Fidelity has crypto trading on their platform now, and I think it's like BTC, ETH, and maybe Litecoin, right? Like Litecoin is just this relic that's always there because it's safe. It does nothing. It's definitely not a security, and I think
Right.
that's like
It has
prime
the
for an
same
ETF.
it has the same claim as Bitcoin as not being a security. But I mean, we saw Grayscale launch a bunch of these things as well, but the TVL on those was tiny, right? Didn't really matter that there was a product. So even if an ETF launches for, Chainlink, are there people that need to access it through an ETF, or are the Marines anyway, kind of buying the coin and not really needing this extra access? So I'm not sure that past Ethereum we'll see a huge impact.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you want to go into audience questions? I know there's like 100 people watching, so
All right,
I'm sure
let's
Yeah. I've
Brad.
got a bunch start. Let's rapid fire them. I'll start pulling them up on the screen.
All right.
All right. Well, we kind of highlighted this, Jordy, but the real question behind the question here is like, is your view on Sol changed, or do you still feel the same way that there's just no enough buying pressure to absorb sort of the FTX fire sale or presumed fire sale?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to, my Sol footing, right? One is philosophical, and that's never going to change. Ultimately, what that distills to is, if we're gonna all choose a fucking coin to pump to the moon and just like make this a store of value, can we choose something that like has fair distribution, or it has no distribution and it's just kind of coming along? rather than, coins that are held by like, Kyle Samani is like very proud that he hasn't sold any Solana. That makes it even less kind of distributed because he hasn't sold any, so they still hold all of it. So, if we go back to like $300, guess what? Like, you've kind of literally handed him, $20 billion of real world money. And, like, I'm sure his ego will be very happy and thank you for it. And, maybe it's a success in some people's eyes philosophically, and from a person that cares about, society, equity, like inequality between, people and not making some people too rich. I have a huge issue with that, and that's never going to change. That said, am I surprised by the buying pressure into what looks like $20-30 million worth of Solana sales every few days or so? I haven't been tracking it as closely as Sticky. I think if he was here, he could tell us exactly how much is being sold. But I am surprised. I think there is more kind of, I don't know if it's like just like people coming in now because they've heard about Solana recently and they're piling on. If it's tactical, I'm not exactly sure, but I am surprised. It's not gonna change my opinion about the ethics of it. And to be clear, at no point, either before or after, have I talked about the technology of Solana. So this is purely of a kind of a token standpoint. Like, what does this token do? What does it represent? It clearly has no cash flows coming anytime in the next like 5-10 years, most likely. So like, does this have some other sort of value? It looks like for this week it does. We'll see.
For this week it does. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Yes, we would love to have Kobe as a guest. If you're Kobe and you're watching this, reach out to us. We'll make sure to have you on. Let's see here. All right, macro expectations. I think this is a really good question here. I'll start with my thoughts. So I think one thing we learned, and I'm still working through this theory, but I think one thing we learned when COVID happened was that a recession is in some ways like a policy choice by the government. It is very possible to intervene and just forcefully stop a recession. Of course, there's downstream consequences, whether it's inflation or other issues that are political. But if we take the viewpoint that a recession is, in fact, like a political decision, it's hard to imagine that being decided on during an election year. So we're going into January in the US. This is an election year where we have a presidential election, and there's certainly a lot of tension and buzz about this one in particular. We hear this every year, but this is certainly, considered the election of our lifetime. It's presumably Biden versus Trump. And it's hard to imagine the current administration sort of allowing unemployment to skyrocket, allow these metrics to not look good, and people feel bad about the economy. Because there's one thing we know about elections. It's like the one way to ensure that you don't win again is a recession, right? Whether it's the current president's fault or not, people associate recession with the current administration. So, I think fundamentally a recession is well deserved in this economy and is coming and is healthy and natural, but it's hard for me to imagine the policymakers allow that to happen this year. But I do think we're definitely due for one. What do you guys think?
I think we are seeing a little bit of weakness in the employment markets for the first time. So insofar as recession means that, some people lose their jobs, that type of thing. It's possible we get that next year, that's for sure. I have thought it was going to happen earlier, so I'm not like the crystal ball when it comes to that. I will say that, one of the theses for me being bullish on crypto all this time is that I think that when there is a recession and there is potentially a lot of government intervention, both on taxes and like trying to, be able to pay for programs when there's a recession, crypto is probably the best escape valve for money trying to get out of that system. We definitely saw that with China, the Chinese money trying to get out of the country. Crypto was one way for that to escape the system. Ultimately, if you're still in the US dollar, you're still part of the system. And, things like Bitcoin potentially can be it's funny, I'm talking to like normies, like TradFi normies, and they've heard of like, it's Larry Fink, I think, talking about how, people are getting into Bitcoin because it's it's like a safe haven. And they're like, their mind is blown to like think about, you know, crypto as like a safe haven, but it is potentially a world that we will find ourselves in. Maybe not EGLD, but maybe at least that one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I sort of wonder if crypto, I mean, probably not, but it could outperform in a recession if one were to occur, just because there's like, we've talked about this before. Like the feature of these coins is there's no actual fundamental way to value them, right? Like there's no earnings behind Bitcoin. Sort of there's pseudo earnings behind ETH, but it's obfuscated and a little confusing for the average investor to understand. So I sort of wonder if like there won't be earnings. Bitcoin's not going to come out with earnings revisions, right? So like theoretically, it should be less affected by recessions, just in a similar way that gold is. Yeah, what do you think, Tucky?
Yeah, no, I was preparing this chart, which I thought was interesting, and it kind of overlays the Bitcoin chart with gold. And I think in the past, I think crypto has been tightly correlated with the Nasdaq, but I think this year we started to see like this divergence where Bitcoin is more correlated with gold, and Ether and other altcoins are more correlated with like the Qs. And gold, surprisingly, is, I mean, it was near its all-time highs. It's facing like a 3% pullback now. But let me just take away the Bitcoin chart. It's actually looking not too bad, right? If you kind of zoom in or zoom out into the monthly, it seems like it wants to break out and put in new all-time highs. So do you think there's a potential where, even if the economy slows down, if gold starts to appreciate, maybe Bitcoin closely trades with gold, whereas maybe risk assets like Ether and altcoins slightly underperform? And this would be like max pain scenario for people like Justin and I, who are like lean more towards who lean more bullish ETH. But like, do you guys think this is a possibility where just Bitcoin and gold just decorrelate, just go up only, whereas like stock, maybe like risk assets like stocks, altcoins, etc., just kind of suffer?
Potentially. I mean, Bitcoin has that moniker. Gold had a kind of a shitty day yesterday. It's not doing amazing. So Powell came out yesterday before he was interrupted by the protesters and told to shut the fucking door. Before that happened, he was starting to say that they are pausing, but they're not sure that they're done. Inflation is still blah blah blah. So he's still trying to act hawkish, and the dollar got stronger on that because they're saying maybe they're not done with rate hikes. Who knows? I think they are done. But gold kind of sold off. I think crypto is just in a very reflexive mode. Price goes up, convinces more people, price goes up. That convinces more people, price goes up, and we just see like rolling through. Again, I'm a little bit worried that there's not enough money coming into the system yet, and the funding rates are high, and I don't know how sustainable that is, but yeah, in the medium term, Bitcoin could start to look like gold. I think there's too much money though in like crypto natives' hands, and it will spread out into ETH and other things. There's too many crypto natives that still have Bitcoin. I am curious though, Taiki, like you're the humble farmer, so you're kind of usually just going for these safe market neutral things. Like, how much FOMO do you feel after two years of bear market, seeing things pump? Like, are you kind of in a market neutral? If you want to farm like basis, you can probably crush basis right now. Like, what are you actually doing?
Well, you seem to misunderstand me, because like, I mean, I guess like my brand is the humble farmer, but people are in the comment section dunking on like my RWA coins because they're nuking. And I actually haven't farmed that much recently, actually. I'm like mostly in Maker and Canto, which is getting nuked. And, people like to slander Thicky's name, right, for being bearish. But, like I also deserve some slandering. But from a farming perspective, I think it is interesting. I think yields have yields for the past, this year and the latter half of like last year has been just awful. And that's one of the reasons why capital has left the crypto markets from on-chain to off-chain, people buying T-bills, yada, yada, yada. But recently we've seen a bunch of, there's multiple things going on. There's actually two things going on. First thing, which we mentioned in the last week podcast, where it seems like teams are starting to think about dropping their tokens because, they have to team investor tokens, they have like a 1 year lockup. So if they want to cash out, they have to wait a year. Might as well drop a token now. So maybe there's more merits to airdrop farming. So going to new L2s, Scroll, Tyco, ZK Sync, Starkware, etc. Maybe that has more merit. Second thing, we've seen the Arbitrum, right, the short-term incentive program, start to go live. And I think when it was first introduced, or in the governance proposal forums, people were kind of shitting on it. It's like, oh, like, like what the fuck is this? Like worthless governance token, that's diluting supply, whatever. But I mean, they seem to be launching at a pretty good time. And if you go to Arbitrum, I think that's one of the best places to farm right now. You can earn 20-30% on Ether if you don't mind lending out to money markets like Silo. There's like perennial markets, Vertex, Trader Joe, GMX, like all these perp markets are paying you to LP. And my mindset has been to just maybe stick to things like Maker, which are more defensive, which hasn't been doing so well. So I deserve some, I guess, flack there. But if I wanted to farm, I would probably just go to Arbitrum. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And as like a humble farmer, I think you kind of have to adjust to different market environments. And in the past, even like last month, I was not really interested in deploying capital to new smart contracts because the yield wasn't worth it. But now it's more worth it just because we're seeing these inflationary emissions via the Arbitrum Foundation. And I expect more and more of these to, like if you're like a dev, right? Like why not drop incentives right now? Because people are interested. So maybe this is, like a sea change from less smart contract risk to, like, fuck it, like maybe it's worth it, maybe it's time to be less humble.
I think you don't even need to like look too far. If you want to get 100% APY, you can find a few perps that have crazy funding rates. I saw someone Hyperliquid that were like in the thousands, even like Bybit. I think ETH yesterday was paying like 10 bips window. So let's analyze this a little bit, because like the good thing is there's a bunch of like TradFi people who don't believe in crypto at all, but they love money. And this is kind of what happened a couple of years ago. I talked to a bunch of, TradFi guys. They hate crypto, but they're like, I see I can just get a basis, like many percent, 20, 30, 50%. They're like, busting their ass at their hedge fund, trying to make like 10% a year. You can put some money on chain and short some, be on the other side of the degens, buy the spot. So you're still like market neutral. In essence, you're providing a service for the community. You're kind of giving like, leverage. I think that could be great. We could have some of those guys come back in and try to capture some of this. I think places like DRW, they're kind of crypto native. They know how to suddenly like put $1 billion on chain. That could help in general. But yeah, more broadly, like I'm surprised that people are aping to the extent that we're seeing 20-25%. I think Bonk, the Solana one, was so heavily longed and leveraged long that it 10x'd, but then the funding is also insane on it. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I think things like Ethena, which is like this ETH shorting stablecoin, could potentially kind of have a good period launching here instead of like in a bear market. So yeah, sorry to still focus on the funding rates. We can maybe move to
I think it's interesting. Like, do you think, for example, like, TradFi, they're horny for these yields, right? Because they're fighting for 10% on like the stock market or whatever. Like maybe the froth that we're seeing in the markets now can actually attract more capital, right? It's kind of like this reflexive loop where froth creates like these dislocations, and those dislocations can only be, I guess, like fixed by like the more suits or like the boomer types. And maybe that this is how we slowly recover. And maybe that's healthy. But anyways, yeah, like we can go through other questions as well.
Just real quick, Jordy, as a market maker, maybe you could share with the audience what we saw like yesterday, today, this week, just as things are picking up. How does it compare to the volume and activity that we saw during the peak of the bull run? Are we like 30% there, 50%, 10%?
I mean, a day like yesterday, volume is 150 plus billion. We had our highest volume day of definitely last 12 months. We traded several billion. I think like the Luna day might have been like the one day that in history that we traded more. So still remember that one, but it's up there. We're definitely up there. I mean, 150 billion in a day is no joke for any market. So the activity is insane. Yeah, like return on capital, if you have money, you just have a choice. Do you want to long ETH and try to capture this like exponential kind of move that's happening, or do you want to lock in 10 basis points every 8 hours? Either way, you're making money as long as the way you lose money is you bet on the long and it actually goes down. That can be painful.
Cool.
People are asking about Layer Zero. I have noticed some tidbits that there might be something next week. I have no inside information, but some people are saying about 14th of November. I don't know if you, Taiki, are you farming this?
I mean, not aggressively. I know some people that created like 100 wallets and they're bridging like $10 here and there, locking up $1 worth of like VE Stargate and whatnot. But I mean, I've been on chain long enough to use Stargate, like 69 times across like multiple wallets. So hopefully it's worth something. And I'll probably not keep it, but actually maybe I will keep it, but I'll probably like just rotate it into either. It could be like these things could help like bottom ETH BTC, right? Like just the wealth effect of these free airdrops. People rotating back to either.
I remember you were farming it. People don't know that me and Taiki kind of met a very long time ago, actually, in California. And one of the times we met, this was like already like kind of bear market, and I was asking you what are you farming anymore? There's no yields, and I think you were at the time you were farming Stargate. You're like 6%, maybe get some token. It's not so bad.
Yeah. I was LPing, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like this was like when I specifically like drove like an hour to like wherever you were at, and then this is like when I think the AC was imploding, and we were all like, "Oh my god!" Like, Sue, no. And we were like just enjoying this like healthy like kind of like not maybe like some organic like salads or whatever, and we were just kind of just like coping about, or not coping, but it's like just thinking about like, damn, like how did the AC blow up? I guess these stories.
But the bear market wasn't even that bad. It feels like it flew by. Prices didn't go down that bad. Like no one really lost money. At least no one I know lost a lot of money.
Chad is gonna disagree. I'm pretty sure that it's been feeling like forever.
But just think, like if you were holding BTC and ETH mostly, like it wasn't that bad. Like just being realistic, that's why it feels too good to be true that we could be entering a bull market, because I never felt. I mean, I was disappointed that they're like. The social sentiment was so far down, but like the price didn't seem to do that poorly in my opinion, at least. But maybe others feel differently. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you feel like we deserve a bull market? Did we feel that pain?
I think the next bull market has to be led by like, I mean, people disagree with me whenever I say this, because I think a lot of people get into crypto for like the Ponzi stuff, and they want the Ponzi stuff because it pumps and whatnot. But I think the reason we're in this space is for the fundamental reasons, right? Like we need like a sustainable, like we do need like a super cycle at some point. Otherwise, this industry is going to go to zero. So I think if you look at the current landscape, like the top 100, I don't think there's like enough value there where we deserve a euphoric bull market. I think we can get there, and it's going to take time. But maybe the next cycle is going to be led by the majors, and then the wealth trickles down into like more valuable apps. What do you think?
Just Jordy? To push back a little though, Taiki, isn't that thesis that the next bull market has to be driven by like fundamental value sort of being disproven before our eyes right now?
I mean,
yeah, I think Justin's right. We haven't learned our lesson yet. We're gonna have to learn the lessons again. But maybe it's like a little bit each time. We just learn a little bit. You're gonna learn today, Justin. I saw somebody
people are telling me on the chat.
I actually saw about ordinals. People, I think Udi was saying that a lot of the block space right now is being covered with ordinals. It's going crazy again. They're saying 5x last 30 days. Michael's saying this in the chat. It's something, even as a crypto native, I haven't kept up with that section. I don't know if you guys, it looks like it's doing well. I'm not sure like what's happening? Is it just like NFT mania, or what do you know, Justin, or you
Well,
guys?
I mean, it got listed on Binance, the token, the ORDI token. So maybe there's speculation around that.
But even the block space, it seems like they're consuming, they're starting to mint stuff. So we're definitely like getting into speculation phase. Okay, so sorry we don't have as much to comment about that one.
I've got a
When
few
Steady
more.
lands X Charles Hoskinson, are you going to go after him, Justin?
I would love if he came on. I think we'd give him a fair show for sure. I mean, I've got a lot to ask him. I think this question from XG sort of sums it up and is a nice transition to Cardano. I'm curious if anyone here owns Cardano. I mean, I'm sure, Jordy, you're market making it, but if you hold spot or like in your personal portfolio, I've never heard anyone say they've used the chain, and I have heard people say they own ADA, but no one that's actually in the industry. It's all people outside of the industry that have sort of like heard about Cardano and want to buy something cheap.
Yeah, I was involved in it last cycle in certain ways, 2 ways I'll mention. One was, and this is how I know that I'm a fantastic click trader and a horrible kind of predictor of memes, but I shorted ADA from 10 cents to $3. Live to tell the tale. So because I survived it, I think it kind of shows that I have some pretty good chops. I think I actually made money shorting it during a 30x. The key was like I would short from like 10 and then I would cover at like 9.5, and then I would wake up the next day, it would be like at 15, and I would short it and then like cover at 13. Then it would go like to 30 cents. And I'd kind of wait for the momentum to die down. As soon as the momentum, I would like slap a short, rebuy at 25 cents. And this just kind of went all the way to $3, which kind of blew my mind. You know, it's one of those community coins / cult coins. I did a VC investment. I put 250K into a DeFi project on Cardano because I wanted to have some exposure to that ecosystem just in case, you know, that's the one that kind of picks up. The project was called Ardana, and after a year of like trying to build something, they kind of went to the Cardano conference and they were told that their code was all shit and they had gone through like the $6 million of money that they had raised, which, you know, was actually a lot of it was 3AC money. I think they had led the round. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but I will say that some people actually made money on it. This was like early in my angel days, and I felt bad taking profit. The thing launched at $10, and I think the entry price was like 50 cents, which was like the seed round. We had a couple months unlocked that we could have sold, and I didn't sell. I think Kyle from Three Arrows managed to, you know, lock in his like 20x for a couple months, and I did not. And I wrote it to not zero. I think I got back 10K for that 200K. So I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter, guys. But...
You know, so I don't hold any Cardano. I never will, but I actually genuinely do think it's going to be one of the best investments going into this next cycle. It's still down 87%. What coin with this like level of memetics and community is still down 87%? There's none that I know of. And I mean, like, who knows if this thing gets to $3 again? That almost doesn't even matter. But that's a 10x from here. Ethereum and Bitcoin cannot really, at least in my estimation, cannot 10x right now. You know, that would put Bitcoin at 350K. Not going to happen in the next few years. That would put Ether at 18,000. Not going to happen in the next few years. But it is actually possible with something like Cardano.
You think ETH is still 1,800? You haven't adapted to like the 2-day new reality of the last 2 days.
Sorry, 22,000. You're right.
22,000.
No, it's not going to be 22,000, right? So Cardano can 10x easily, right? Like, we know that it can hit its former all-time high and maybe just dribble out from there forever, hopefully. But Ether can't 10x here. So like, I do think there is going to be a wave where people start looking at the top 10 or top 20 or wherever Cardano's at, and they say, hold on a second, like, they're building in Africa. They've got these great researchers. They're publishing papers every day. sure, no one's built on it, but DeFi is easy. We can figure that out later. That's that's the famous Charles quote. So for me, if I was more aggressive and eager to take on risk, I actually genuinely think Cardano is a good move right now. But I don't hold any, and I don't see myself ever buying any.
Yeah, Jordy is shaking his head. He's like, Justin has not learned from the past cycle. We're still.
Well, Jordy said that about Solana. So, and let the record show, I was the one challenger of Jordy a couple of weeks ago. I said, well, Jordy, presumably some capital is going to come in and buy Solana, and I wish I acted on it, but
Yeah, I will never cease to be amazed, the degree to which we can get like reflexive kind of late buyers coming in, and people like to ape stuff, and if something looks juicy, it's a casino that they want to go inside. We'll see how things end up, and again, a lot of my Solana comments are more around the kind of the distribution, less about the ecosystem and the vibes and
I know
merch,
I'm just picking
whatever
on
the
you,
fuck
Jordy.
is.
Sorry.
Yeah. Cool. Let's take a couple more. Maybe let's do a pasta of the week. Flippening. Wow, we've been going in the opposite direction. I haven't even thought about that word.
It's
Yeah,
an
me
interesting
neither.
question. I don't see it happening if we follow the same 4-year cycle pattern. I don't think it'll happen, but I do think it will happen eventually, but not in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, someone pointing that there's allegations of the project I mentioned, Ardana, gambling and losing their funds. I don't know. I mean, I haven't. I think it's like incompetence. The founder was an intelligent guy that it was over his head. He was very young. This is one of the things I learned from the last cycle in my angel investing. Most of the projects that involved like 18 to like 21 whiz kids, year-old whiz kids, I think they might be smart, but they can't necessarily manage an organization. You need somebody like Justin here. You need like the wise 29-year-old. You can't have these like 21-year-olds doing it.
30 in a month, though. 30 in a month.
Congrats. Someone's asking about Algorand. Maybe you
What's
guys,
that?
Man.
I have used Algorand. I think I got you into it for a while, Takey. There was some juicy stuff, right?
No, yeah, we were farming at the same time.
It's good.
Algorand. Yeah, I just farmed and dumped, and
yeah, I think
yeah,
what it showed me is that it's less about the technology and it's more about the memeability and the KOLs and the influencers, like Injective versus Algorand. Like Injective is super successful and Algorand is like one way down. Is there much better tech on one versus the other? I'm not sure. I mean, you have Silvio, he's supposed to be like, a really good techie, but it goes to show that the memeability of these projects is kind of what matters for price.
I think Algorand cannot pump until Gary Gensler's out of the SEC because he was a huge Algorand shill as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Shall we wrap up with pasta of the week? I think this has been a successful first live episode. We'll see what people think in the end. But Ike, you want to kick us off with the pasta?
Yeah, Justin, do you have it?
Yeah, pulling it up now. Brad, do we have the little spicy transition? Okay, maybe not. All good. We'll do it live.
Okay. Well, this was a couple of days ago, but I think there was this Bored Ape, like Ape Fest, and a bunch of Bored Ape holders went to this thing. But apparently, people that went to the Ape Fest, like, I don't know what percent of them, but a decent amount of them like came out of there with eye injuries, and they like some of these people they woke up the next day and they couldn't open their eyes, and I think it had something to do with like the UV lights that they used on stage, and I'm just like, I haven't heard any good news around Bored Apes in like the longest time, and I feel like they're kind of like this meme within the crypto community. So it's kind of like my pasta as the Bored Apes keep losing.
Yeah, I saw some footage from this. It was wild. I didn't even know something like that was possible. I was listening to the chopping block earlier. Apparently, they were like these disinfectant lights that were very uncommon. But yeah, shocking to hear, and have to wear eye protection at future Bored Ape conferences.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate. For the first time, my heart goes out to the apes. They're just trying to have fun and they're getting their eyes blasted by some crazy lights. I don't know. Sounds bad. Depressing pasta, Taiki.
I
Uh,
know, I know. I don't, I
anything
don't mean
more?
to dunk on them, like we're all in it together, but thought it was good pasta.
How about you, Justin?
Cool. Yeah, I'll pull mine up here. So I kind of shot my shot earlier, unfortunately, but because Thicky's not here, I feel like I can pick on him a little. I wanted to pull up a chart with the timestamp of exactly 10 a.m. when Thicky announced that he was short ETH BTC and he wanted to wash out the tourists and he was hoping for luck, but justice was served. And I think I commented here he was I don't know if he was liquidated. I'm sure he's doing fine. He's a brilliant trader, but it was, yesterday was like the one good day ETH BTC bulls, which I think is basically just me at this point. Had a good day, so we got to live it up and enjoy it.
So score one for the tourists finally after a beating.
I'm no tourist, all right.
And my pasta is just I want to say that Sifu. This guy Sifu, he's a lot of things. He's maybe a sketchy guy, maybe, but he's not a gambler. Okay, and he went $20 million short on chain at $1,600, 1634 of ETH. He's got to know something. I assume Sifu knows something. He's not a gambler. So, 30-40% up later. I think is he liquidated or he must be. I mean,
he closed the position, I believe, right?
Okay.
I mean, okay, like we're not here to shit on Sifu, but like he literally closed at the Pico top right before like the cascade happened. Like the cascade, and then he flipped long.
He must know something.
I guess he's yeah. He knew something.
Yeah, well, I think thanks to Adam Cochran for the entertainment of the week.
He's like a pasta chef.
He's a pasta chef. Maybe we should get him on at some point. He is known to occasionally appear in podcasts. I think we might do a live one so we can get some shit posting during an Adam Cochran. So maybe the chat can let us know who they prefer. But I think our next week is we're finally having Austin from Solana to tell us why Solana is money. Apparently, I'm wrong. It is money. So that'll be an interesting one. He's a very intelligent guy. So I'm looking forward to that. Any closing thoughts, guys?
Let us know what you thought of the live format in the comments. We're learning too. You can see we've got a lot of fibs and screw ups here. Not fibs, but screw ups here. But we're learning. If you like the format, let us know. If you prefer sort of like the pre-recorded, edited format, let us know too. We're just here to have fun and learn from the audience and chat with you guys. So let us know. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe. Anything on your end, Taiki?
Wag me.
Oh my God. All right. I'm going to end the stream. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Wag me.